Ever had one of those moments, those moments that totally shift your whole trajectory?
Oh, absolutely.
James Clear in Atomic Habits, he starts off with one of those stories,
Yeah,
and it makes you really reevaluate things.
for sure.
He talks about this near-fatal accident he experienced.
It'll really make you stop and think.
Yeah.
When you consider, like, Claire, he was this promising athlete, young baseball player.
Yeah.
Then, bam, freak accident in practice just changes everything.
Yeah, it's incredible how he takes this experience going from, as he puts it, literally not being able to see straight to becoming an academic All-American.
Right?
And uses it to understand these small changes, how they can create massive shifts.
He doesn't just tell you to change, right? He breaks it down, the
Exactly.
science, with these 4 laws of behavior change. And it's great, right? Because they're not just vague ideas. It's rooted in how our brains actually work.
Okay, so let's break down these laws. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying.
Okay.
They seem pretty straightforward on the surface, but I'm guessing there's a lot more to them.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot more to them. Like, let's start with make it obvious.
Uh-huh.
It all comes down to cues, right? The things that trigger our habits.
Okay.
So think about it. You walk into your kitchen, you see a plate of cookies just sitting there. Boom. Your brain goes on autopilot.
It's true.
That's that cue in action
Like our surroundings are always influencing us, even when we're not aware of it.
all the time.
So how do we actually use this to our advantage then?
Well, Claire talks about something called habit stacking. You're essentially piggybacking a new habit onto one you already do.
Okay.
So let's say you want to start meditating every morning.
Yeah.
You could stack that on top of, I don't know, brushing your teeth.
So after I brush my teeth, I will meditate for 1 minute.
There you go.
I love that. That's so simple.
You're creating a shortcut, basically.
It really is.
You're leveraging those neural pathways you already have, so it feels almost effortless to start this new habit.
But starting is just one part of it, right? How do we keep that motivation going, especially when things get a little stale?
Well, you've got to bring in the dopamine, right? Our brains love that stuff.
That quick hit of satisfaction.
Exactly. And that's where Make It Attractive comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about making it just enjoyable, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be something you actually anticipate doing.
Oh, interesting.
Clear talks about the Polgar sisters,
Okay, yeah.
who were basically raised on chess.
Yeah.
And they excelled because, for them, it was designed to be attractive.
It was their world.
Their whole life was structured around it.
So we're not all going to be chess prodigies, but what's the takeaway there? What can people do?
I think the big one is understanding how to connect those habits to things you enjoy, things that already get you excited.
Okay.
You want to read more. Create a cozy reading nook, a space you love, so you can escape with a good book.
Tapping into that power of reward, that anticipation.
Exactly.
Okay, we've got our cues, we've tied our habits to things we like, but what about when things get hard,
Yeah.
Even with all the right setup.
That's where we get to make it easy.
Yeah.
And it's really as simple as it sounds. The easier something is to do, the more likely you are to actually do it.
Friction is the enemy of action. I'm going to steal that one.
100% go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And Clear talks about reducing the activation energy needed to start.
Oh, I like that.
He compares it to striking a match.
Okay.
Too much friction. It's not going to light.
Right.
So you want to work out each morning?
Right.
Yeah, lay your clothes out the night before, get that water bottle filled up. You're removing the obstacle.
Those tiny obstacles that can derail you, yeah.
Exactly. You're basically greasing the wheels,
I love that.
taking action as easy as possible.
But it's not just about starting. We've got to stick with it too, right?
You've got it.
Which brings us to our final law. Make it satisfying. We want that instant gratification. Our brains crave it. So how do you bridge the gap between those short-term desires and the long-term rewards, especially for habits that take a while to show any results?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting, okay? Instead of those big, far-off goals, Clear says, shift your focus to your identity.
Hold on. You're saying who we believe we are plays a role in our habit.
Huge role. Yeah.
Tell me more.
It changes everything, okay? Instead of, I want to lose 10 pounds, you think, I'm the kind of person who prioritizes their health. See the difference?
It's a total mindset shift.
Right.
It's not chasing a goal. It's embodying the person who already lives that way.
Exactly. You're aligning your actions with who you believe you are, who you want to become. Every choice you make that fits with that identity.
Yeah.
It solidifies it.
That is so powerful.
Right.
Each action is like a vote for the person you want to be. But let's be real, even with a clear identity, streamlined habits, we're still going to have those days
Oh, yeah.
where we hit a wall.
It happens.
And you know what trips people up so often? Even with the best intentions?
What's that?
Boredom.
Ah, yes, boredom.
It's the silent killer of so many good intentions.
It really is.
You start with a bang, but then it becomes routine and the motivation fizzles.
Yeah,
How do we combat that? Clear must have some insight.
he does. He does. And it's all about finding that sweet spot, what he calls the Goldilocks rule.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Right.
Tell me more about this Goldilocks
Oh,
rule.
we're going to dive into that. But first,
Okay.
we got to take a quick break.
All right.
We'll be right back to unravel this mystery.
Okay.
Don't go anywhere.
We're back and ready to dive into this whole Goldilocks rule thing. It sounds kind of whimsical for a personal development book, right?
Right. It's not exactly about fairy tales, though. It's about finding that sweet spot, that level of challenge that keeps you engaged. Not too easy, not too hard.
So you're saying we don't want habits to be too easy because we'll get bored, but not so hard. We just give up, finding that middle ground.
Exactly. It's that just right level where it stays interesting, keeps you coming back for more. Because our brains love that sense of progress, that feeling of stretching ourselves just a bit.
It's like in video games, right? Each level ups the challenge a little,
Yeah.
keeps you hooked.
It's exactly the same principle.
Yeah.
You master one level, you're on to the next challenge, and that keeps things exciting. The trick with habits is finding a way to keep leveling up without getting in over your head.
So how do we actually do that? How do you know you're in that Goldilocks zone? And what if you're veering off course?
Well, Clear talks about what he calls habit shaping. Basically, you gradually increase the difficulty as you get better.
So if you're trying to write more, maybe don't start with some crazy goal like 1,000 words a day. Begin with a paragraph, a page, something that gets you going.
Right. And as that becomes easier, you nudge it up a bit,
Hmm.
maybe 2 pages, then 5. You're listening to your own rhythm, and challenging yourself in a way that feels doable.
It's like that saying, we overestimate what we can do in a day and underestimate what we can do in a year. Those small steps, they really do add up over time. But what about those days when even the just right stuff feels impossible?
Happens to everyone.
You'd rather do anything else.
Clear talks about embracing the boredom of training. Basically, having the discipline to show up even when you don't feel like it.
That's tough.
It is. That's what separates the people who dabble from the people who achieve mastery. They show up consistently, even when it's not glamorous.
Like those elite athletes. They don't train just when the mood strikes. It's every single day, pushing through because that's what it takes.
Exactly. Any habit, really. It's not always going to be fun and games. Some days it's a slog. But that's you building mental toughness, proving your commitment.
It's about showing up for yourself. Okay, I'm feeling this, but what about those times when you feel stuck? Like you've plateaued, it's not just right anymore, it's just blah.
That's a great question and something a lot of people experience. And the good news is, Clear's got some practical advice for getting unstuck.
Okay, lay it on us. How do we bust through those plateaus?
Well, I think it's the perfect time to take a quick break and unpack those strategies when we get back.
All right then, don't go anywhere. We are back. And before the break, we were talking about those plateaus, the ones that can really throw you off track when you're building habits. So how do we bust through those and get that motivation back?
Well, Clear talks about injecting some novelty into your routine.
That makes sense. Our brains love new stuff. It's how we're wired.
Right. So it's about keeping things fresh and interesting, even if the habit itself stays the same.
Okay, so how do we actually apply that though?
Well, let's say you're trying to meditate daily, right? But you're finding yourself getting bored with the same old guided meditation.
Oh, tell me about it. I've been there. You start out all excited, then a few weeks in.
It's like, ugh, not this again.
Exactly.
So instead of giving up on the whole thing, maybe you try a new app
Okay.
or explore different techniques, maybe even join a meditation group.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, so it's like hitting the refresh button, but not abandoning the whole journey.
That's it.
It's keeping those neural pathways firing, but with a little variety.
Exactly. And that applies to all sorts of habits.
Yeah.
If you're trying to eat healthier, test out some new recipes, explore different cuisines. If it's reading more, join a book club. Maybe challenge yourself to try a different genre than usual.
Instead of it being this rigid set of rules, it becomes about exploration and discovery. But I have to ask, even with variety, even with the Goldilocks rule, with a really strong sense of identity, there's that one concept that Clear talks about, the aggregation of marginal gains. Sounds kind of official, right?
It sounds a lot more complicated than it actually is,
Yeah.
honestly. It really just means that it's those small improvements, those seemingly insignificant 1% changes.
Right.
Those are the things that add up over time to create huge results.
It's like Rome wasn't built in a day, right?
Why?
It's so easy to get caught up in those big overnight transformations.
People want the quick fix.
Exactly.
But real change, that
Yeah.
doesn't happen overnight. It's those small steps, one at a time, over and over.
It reminds me of, it's like building muscle, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You're not going to walk into the gym for the first time and just bench press 100 pounds. It takes time. You have to put in the work. You have to be consistent.
Exactly. It's those small, consistent efforts that build strength.
And it's the same thing with building a life that you love. It's one good habit at a time. And it's not about perfection. It's about consistency, showing up for yourself even when it's challenging, even when you don't see those results right away.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So think about it. What's that one tiny habit, that 1% change that you can commit to today? Maybe it's drinking an extra glass of water, going for a 5-minute walk, reading a page of a book, whatever it is. Those small actions, when you do them consistently, they can transform your life in ways that you can't even imagine right now.
So true.
And there you have it, a deep dive into atomic habits. Building better habits, it's not about a quick fix. It's about understanding how those small changes can lead to big results. And it's about embracing the power of consistency.